Who do we have here?
We've woken up G1. He's standing up and ready to interact with us. I knew from the moment I saw it that I wanted to launch a company to market robots. We want to be the company that people think of and making it easy to put the robot to work. All my life I've been getting ready for Toborlife. This is a much bigger opportunity than anyone I've pursued before. Eventually the power of a $50 billion AI factory today will be in the robot. You're going to be seeing them everywhere very soon.
Hey David, welcome to the HumanWare Project.
Thank you, it's great to be here.
Today is actually a very special episode. Not only we have two humans here, we have the third party here is a robot. Who do we have here?
Yes, we've woken up G1. He's standing up and ready to interact with us.
Hello.
G1, do you know where we are, what we're doing?
I know that you're filming. I can see cameras all around the room.
That's correct. That's exactly what we're doing. Would you like to throw Malene a kiss?
So what are the software you've been developing on the top of the Toborlife?
Our software line is called Tobar Harness. And Tobar Harness is a line of products that basically harnesses the power of the robot but also controls it, just like a dog harness would. And I discussed a little bit earlier the areas that we're doing, but we're going to give the robot greater interactivity. So it's going to be able to understand what you're asking and answer you better, even in a crowded room. So one of the problems now is if you're at a cocktail party or a noisy room, the robot would have a hard time discerning who is speaking to it. There would be random noise and commands coming to it. So our technology, just like a human being, can understand that the sound, where it's coming from. If I'm facing over here and you talk to me, I can tell it's you and I would look at you. The robot will respond like that. It'll also allow you to incorporate trained language models into it, which isn't available now. So our technology is going to allow the robot to excel at areas of customer service and helping people in retail environments and receptionists and other jobs where good communication back and forth is vital. So that's one of our products under the Tobar Harness brand. We're also working on products that will allow the robot to navigate the environment better and manipulate objects. And I think later on we'll be demonstrating some of those capabilities for you.
Why the name Toborlife?
Tobar is robot spelled backwards.
Okay.
And life is because what Toborlife is doing is incorporating robots into our work life and our home life. So we're trying to develop applications to have robots be part of our lives in a natural way that benefits us. So that's our mission.
What does robot do?
This is the G1 robot from Unitree, Robotics, and we are developing applications for it to make it more useful. It's one of the first humanoids that you can buy on the market, very versatile, and I think you're going to be seeing them everywhere very soon.
Humanoid robot became more and more popular, especially on the social media. What do you think to this change?
Well, part of it is availability. I mean, this is the first time robots are really accessible to the average person. It's still an investment, but it's reachable by many people now. So I think you're starting to see people think about ways they can use them in their business to promote things or in their hobbies or whatever they're doing. And because of that, we're starting to see them around more.
Yesterday, I saw you on CES and boxing with a robot. Could you tell us what right now the robot could do?
People buying them have mostly been for research, education, or development. So a lot of universities and schools are buying them for their classrooms or their engineering programs. And then also we have a lot of small and large companies buying them to develop applications. So just as when the personal computer first came out, and the people that bought them were primarily programmers working on software for them. That's where we are with robots today.
We see a lot of interesting, social media clips on what robot can do today. What are truly the robotic can do today in our society?
Some of the things that are emerging for them to do, one is teleoperations. So the robot can be controlled remotely by a person through usually those VR goggles, devices, glasses that you use for gaming. And by doing that, the robot can go into dangerous situations where humans don't have to risk their life in a dangerous situation. So for example, like a chemical spill, or one application we're doing is for electricians. so that at certain companies where the electrician has to go in and do work on a panel, they can have the robot do it and they can remotely control it. So if there was, some kind of accident or something, it would just affect the robot. It wouldn't affect the operator. So that's one area. Another area is promotion, because they're people magnets. So they're being used like for dance shows and promotional activities to draw people in. Also customer service. They have large language models capabilities. So they can interact with somebody in communication and answer questions and maybe guide you around to something you're looking for at a location. They're being used for security patrols. So we've sold them to data centers that even though they have cameras mounted everywhere, they want the extra level of security of having a robot walking around patrolling. So those are some of the examples that we've seen so far.
Recently, you see, like in Wall Street Journal and all the other big media, there has, for example, Neo, like the robot, is helping people with cooking. How far are we from the robot can doing that?
Yeah, the robots are best for very, very basic, repetitive tasks. Simple things. That's where we are today. You'll see a lot of inspirational videos of the robot doing things that are maybe like advanced, and I've seen, I think, some of the ones you're referring to. Most people would say that I think that the robots aren't really there yet, but you got to start somewhere. So I think, it's an inspirational that we will get to where the robot can interact with you at that level, but I don't think that's the expectation to be able to do that today.
And what's your point of view on physical AI and robotics and physical AI is becoming one of the most important words of this year, I believe, because it's put AI into a hardware layer and we can actually using it and interact with it. Where do you see robotic is going for the years to come?
Sure, that's a great question. So, people understand AI largely now, or large language models. They interact with ChatGPT and Gemini and such. Those exist just not in the physical world, right? Just online. So it's been thought that that's like us dreaming, that there's no body behind the AI. It doesn't understand the physical world because it doesn't exist. It's kind of like us in a dream state. So we think that having AI in a physical body and being able to understand the world so that it can learn going through the world like we do is a necessary step towards the advancements of artificial general intelligence so that the robots can actually be like us and navigate on their own. So we think the robotics is a manifestation of AI, in the physical world, and that's necessary so that the robots can eventually take over from us.
So do you think how far we are from the robot can actually taking over some of the job from us?
Very, very basic jobs they'll be able to do, I think, this year. Greeting people, simple sorting of things, manipulation of objects in a basic way. Again, security, patrolling. So they can be very, very helpful. They're not going to do complicated things or make decisions or be able to navigate our world completely on their own, for a while. But it's step by step, just like any technology has to start somewhere and evolve. And I think this will evolve very quickly, actually. There's a lot of people working very hard to move these forward. And we're getting more and more data from robots in the physical world. And as that progresses, it builds. And when one robot learns something, they can all learn it. So there's like an exponential growth factor.
Could you tell us what kind of opportunity or risk or potential future we are looking at now from the beginning era of robotic and humanoid robot?
I do think people will become dependent on robots doing things for them as that progresses. Now I think there's tremendous opportunity for a long, long time. People are very concerned about robots taking over jobs and so forth. I see it as expanding capabilities, just like if you have a computer, you can, with creative thought, you can create a business just on your own, just sitting at your computer. I think a robot even amplifies that. And the ability to create new businesses and new opportunities, I think is going to be very expansive. So I think it'll allow for everybody to do, better, not worse. And it's common that people fear new technologies, and we've heard it before how computers are going to eliminate a lot of jobs and so forth. And some jobs are eliminated. You don't see rooms full of people, using spreadsheets or, so forth anymore. You use a computer. So I think it'll be like that. I think it'll make us more efficient, and it'll take away mundane jobs. and free people up from doing things that are very boring and give them a brighter future, give them more interesting things to do.
From the hardware perspective, where do you see the robotic will getting improved step by step in the future?
It's advancing very quickly now. So the robots are getting stronger, more balanced, more capable. The hardware is improving in terms of battery technology. We have GPUs now that are much more powerful in terms of their processing capabilities. So there's been a combination of hardware improvements that make this possible in terms of batteries and motors and AI, even depth cameras. So it's a combination of many things, and those technologies continue to advance. LiDARs is another one. So the costs go down and the technology gets better over time. So we'll see significant improvements in the capabilities of robots. One way they're measured is degrees of freedom. And G1 has a lot of degrees of freedom, I think 43. So he could correct me if I'm wrong.
Could you name a few, like a 43 freedom? What do you mean by
Well,
that?
so he can move in the waist quite a bit. He bends at the joints and knees. What it allows him to do is move like us. He can recreate human movements very fluidly because he has degrees of freedom. It's also in the wrist and in the fingers. So that's really one of the key things that are developing is the robot being able to move like we move.
And from the software perspective, what are the step-by-step improvement for the future of robotics?
The software is actually a bigger challenge than the hardware. I would say the hardware is advancing more rapidly than the software because the software it's a very, very big challenge. Robots are hard is something I've heard many top roboticists say. And anyone that thinks it's easy probably isn't really working very hard at it. The software is advancing. AI technologies is key to the robots. I mean, that's what's made it possible. And the other areas that are advancing are navigation and the robot being able to recognize objects and manipulate things on its own. So, but even at the top levels, you might, like the Stanfords and the Googles and places like that, it's probably further away than people think before the robot can just be your pal and come and help you around the house or do anything like that.
Is there any other entertainment around the robot out there,
Well, there's been some viral videos, but the robot can dance very well. It can, talk to you and interact with you. It can be funny. It can flip in the air. Again, it has great agility. Yeah, it's a very sensitive trick. It's being worked on. But yeah, we've seen them flip. So the Unitree robots have specific, great capabilities. There's other robots out there too that are, having capabilities like that. But people just love robots, so they're just very entertaining. Almost doing anything, they have a great time watching.
Could you tell us a little bit more about why you start Toborlife? Because I know you have successfully founded 7 companies and exit 4 of them. And what drive you into the robotic industry at the very beginning?
Well, my career has been introducing emerging technologies, finding problems for those solutions that people are producing is how I think of it. And I hadn't really started a company for a while. I was enjoying life, but I felt like I needed something else to do rather than just go to yoga class every day. So I was just thinking what I could do and, looking for something that fit for my skills and the journey I wanted to take. And, robotics dawned on me, the universe brought me the idea. And then I always looked for a partner, a good supplier, manufacturer to partner with that I can build on their platforms. And again, the universe answered it and brought me Unitree. And I was lucky because, they've done so well over the last year and a half since we've become partners. And a great company to work with. And they give us the best return on investment product out in the market. So in terms of price performance, we have a great platform to build on. And then with our applications, we're developing our use cases and our technologies that we're incorporating into the Unitree platform so that it becomes useful. We're able to deliver solutions that are, again, reachable, affordable, and as a business person, I recognize, there has to be an ROI. So I think because of the price points and the capabilities of the hardware and the software we're developing, there's a great ROI, so that means it'll be successful.
From the software perspective, what does Toborlife AI offers into the robot hardware?
There's different areas that we're working on. One is teleoperations. So we're developing a very low latency teleoperation system that no matter where you are in the globe, you could remote control the robot with the minimum delay and allow it to train what you want it to do. So that if you bought a robot from us, you would get this teleoperation software and you would be able to teach the robot things it could do by manual operating it, and then it would learn from that, and then it would be able to eventually, after some time, do it on its own. And we're supplying and developing the technology for that to make it very easy. Some of it exists already, but it's helpful to be a robot engineer to deploy it. We're going to make it so that anybody can just plug it in and use it through our systems. Another one we're working on is navigation and object manipulation. So if you told the robot to go get you a Coca-Cola, it would be able to navigate to the Coca-Cola, pick it up, and bring it to you. And you know, I've seen this before. I've introduced a lot of new technologies, you know, desktop scanning devices and mice and lots of different areas. And I've noticed that when I put out a technology, you always have an area of where you think it's going to be used. But I like to see how people take it and use it in ways that I've never dreamed of. And then we can go deeper in those areas and support that. So what I look forward to is getting these base functionalities out into the market. We've identified some markets that we're going to pursue, but I know what's going to happen is people are going to think of very creative ideas on how they can apply this solution to their problem. And I can't wait to see all the ways that can be done.
Fundamentally, what Toborlife AI is doing is if I'm an individual customer, I want this robot to do certain things that I would like. Your engineer is able to implement into the robot and then to teach me how to use it and how to train it and how to really make it functional.
Yeah, that's accurate. We try to do things that are broadly appealing. So if you had a very, very specific need, it may or may not be covered. But we want to give you know, horizontal tools, broad tools, and then develop any specifics for customers that they might need within, you know, their particular segment.
And what do you see like your previous career have helped you to launching into the robotic business?
Sure, I think all my life I've been getting ready for Toborlife. I think like everything I've done up to now is preparation for this. I think this is the real event. My e-commerce background, I've done a number of e-commerce companies and those were very exciting. I mean, we're applying e-commerce obviously to the robot business and the marketing, but yeah, it's very, very challenging. This is a much bigger opportunity I think than anyone I've pursued before. Yeah, it's taken everything I know and learned and applying it to this business.
During the show of CES last week, you see a lot of robotic company. And where do you see like the Toborlife stand out from all the other competitors?
We have a tremendous marketing team, so I'll start there. I have a marketing company for the last 15 years that I folded into Toborlife. And I have some just very, very talented people. So even though we've only been on the market with Unitree for a little over a year, not much more than that, we already are one of the top suppliers in the United States of Unitree robots. I mean, I think, you know, we're catching up to the leaders. And so we're very close to that. That's largely due to our marketing prowess. And then we have tremendous programming staff, so we have deep technology that we're going to be able to layer in there. And our partnership, we work very closely. I think we're the closest distributor in the United States to Unitree. So that allows us to you know, work with them and get information that helps our customers and develop our products. So those are the three main points, I think, is our fantastic marketing capabilities, our strong technology focus, you know, and our strong partnership with our manufacturer.
And right now, how many models of robots do you have in the company?
Sure, there's a handful of robots. I'll start with G1 since he's here. So G1 is this robot, and there's multiple lines within the robot. So like if you car analogy, you can get a 4-cylinder engine or a 6-cylinder 8. So G1 comes with 1 or 2 computers. The 1 computer model would just be for the promotional thing we talked about, like if you were just using it to attract people. Then there's development models that you can program, and they have a range of capabilities too, largely around whether it has manipulated hands that can, you know, move and pick up things or not, and the degrees of freedom that it has. So each line of robots has multiple models. So this is G1. And we went over kind of some of the things that he can do, largely a development platform, but also for security, patrolling, and interacting with us.
And what is the retail price for G1?
A programmable G1 starts at about 43,000 and goes up to about 80, depending on the bells and whistles, basically, that you configure. And then we also have, at the opposite end, is the Go-To robot. And that is a quadruped robot, or dog form factor. And the reason these are basically modeled after dogs or people is because the world is designed to accommodate that. And so the dog platform, Go-To, and there's different lines of that robot too. There's a consumer one called Go-To Pro, which is great if you want to take it home and have a robot home to play with and learn about robots, and it can do some useful things for you.
What kind of thing it can do for me?
It could carry things, if you want to send somebody something across your house, it can carry 20 pounds and you could have it navigate to a different part of your house and deliver it. It's a security robot as well, so you could be on a trip and you could wake it up and have it take pictures and maybe go check on your elderly parents or something if you wanted to. So things like this. It's half entertainment, half introduction to robots at your home, but it's a very unique thing. It's one of the first robots I ever saw, and it does tricks. It's great for attracting attention. I use it to help me walk my dog. My dog loves it. So you find a lot of uses for it. There's also models that you can add things onto. So just like computers are expandable, the robots are expandable. And there's another model that's EDU. The EDU designation is for development research. And the Go-To EDU is fully programmable. You could develop programs that you could then migrate to G1, as a matter of fact, on it. That robot, being that it's programmable, is used in schools for education and research, because not every school could have a G1. And you could add an arm to it and have it go around and pick up things for you. We're developing applications that will, with partners that have sensing chips. So it would be able to detect smells of what you're looking for in the park, for example. Dog droppings or fentanyl or whatever you wanted to try to eliminate from the park with its arm. So these are some areas that are being developed for it. But a lot of it is inspection and patrolling on the dog side. And then there's larger dogs. There's a B2 model, which can forge a river. I mean, it has the ability to go underwater. It can carry 150 pounds. It's an industrial robot. Like, that's good for construction sites, patrolling outside, because it's not, it would survive like a rain and people, it's too big to pick up and take. So B2, and then also B2 is being used for like transportation at corporate campuses to transport something between buildings that they used to have to somebody carry. So those are some, or some construction sites carry heavy things up hills or rough terrain. So that's what it's used for. There's other robots coming out that are going to be even more deployable. One is called an A2 that I'm very excited about. We're going to have in April. It's a medium-sized dog. I talked about the large dog and the small dog. This is kind of like, the Goldilocks dog. It's the perfect size, and it's impervious to the elements. It can carry heavy weights. It can go 10 hours, and we're very excited about that. We're going to have lots of new applications for that as well. And then there's two other humanoid robots coming out in April. One is smaller than G1, and it's designed for entertainment, promotion, also research, where it's easier to use. It's a little lighter and smaller, so it's a little more manageable, lower cost. And then there's a big robot coming out. I'm very excited about this one called the H2 that can lift heavy weights. It's big. It's going to be priced very well, and I see that deployed in warehouses and industrial situations where you would need a stronger robot.
Let's say if I'm someone in our audience that I'm very excited about robotics, where is a good place to start?
A lot of people start with the Go-To EDU, which is it's an amazing product, by the way, and it's perfect for what you just said. It's a programmable quadruped or dog robot. It comes with an NVIDIA Judson Orin, which is a secondary computer for it that you can program, completely. It's open source computer, so you can run Python on or C++ or whatever programming language that you want. And that way, as you're running in simulators, then you can download it to the dock and see what your program does. And that's a very, very popular product. And It's enabling a lot of people to learn about robot programming. We have a lot of parents in schools that buy those so that they can get the advantage of experience programming robots.
Do you think for robotic, we are reaching out to that moment? Parents can buy their kids a dog and they can just figure out the software to learn how to program the robot themselves.
Definitely. That's the path. I mean, again, it's not easy, but with robots like the GoToEDU, it's a great place to start. There's large communities online. When we sell a robot, we offer a class to help them get jump-started programming it. So a lot of places probably have resources for that.
What I would learn in that class?
Well, you would learn how to download initial programs to the GoToEDU, how to control it from your computer, and some basic commands so that you would interact. You would also learn like what communities are online that you can interact with to do what you want to do.
You have mentioned earlier that you felt like your whole career path is building to running Toborlife.
Yeah.
Could you bring us back a little bit? What is your entrepreneurship journey and how did you get started to start your own company and able to successfully exit?
I started working at a software company my brother had. I got trained there in sales. This is right after school. Moved out to California. So I had a few jobs. I recommend that. I think getting jobs at companies and then learning what you think they do well and then what you think they don't do well that you can improve in your business. So my first company was introducing CAD and digitizers, mice at the time. So we had the first software computer-aided design program that was affordable, $99. And eventually I sold that company to Logitech. And then I went out and basically did the same thing with desktop scanners and built a company that became one of the leading suppliers of scanning devices, partnering with overseas manufacturers, but improving on their technologies through software and add-ons. And again, finding problems for this solution that was existing. And after that, I did a number of other startups in the marketing field. I was one of the early companies that was doing online digital marketing, sold that. And then also did a janitorial supply company that's online still called Betty Mills. And just one after another, I think just building, learning what it takes to scale companies and form partnerships.
And how important you think marketing is inside a company?
Well, I think branding is very important. I mean, I think your brand has to stand for something. People trust brands. Mm-hmm. So I think you can have a great product, but if you're not able to get the message out and explain it to people simply, then somebody else is going to be perceived as having a better product than you. So I think marketing is key, but I'm a marketing person, so of course I think that.
Why Unitree, in a sense, sparks your interest and make you want to go to this road with them?
They've been creating robots for a long time, the quadrupeds, the dogs, which enable them to make G1. And I've always worked for supporting like the small and medium-sized businesses. I like the underdog, if you want. So I'm the underdog. So I like partnering with a company that is focused on value proposition. And I think Unitree is scaling to the point where they have abilities to deliver a hardware platform at a lower cost with better performance than most companies. I mean, again, I'm not saying they're the only ones out there, but for us, it fits very well with what we're looking to do. And when I first met with them, I presented our capabilities. And they presented theirs, and it was a very good fit. So I think our ability to market and get the message out, as well as we have visionaries in our company developing technologies for the robots. I think the combination makes us a very good partner for Unitree, and therefore makes them a good partner for us.
And for you, what is your driving force behind all this vision?
I like being successful. I like reaching goals. And practicing my craft, which is, introducing technology. So I like demonstrating that I'm capable. But also, at the point we're at now, we're able to scale our company, and that creates opportunity for all of our employees. So it gives me a lot of satisfaction being able to give opportunities and have people able to come into our office. And then since our company is expanding very rapidly, we can give them more and more responsibility. I'm a big believer in hiring people that have good attitudes and skills, but maybe not experience, and then helping, coaching them, or finding them a mentor or coach in their area to grow and gain that experience while they're working with us. So it's creating an environment now that lets us do that. So that's given a lot of satisfaction. And you know, the more people that hear about Toborlife and that we reach in the world, we can have an impact. And I think that's the best.
And what is the future look like for Toborlife? What is the vision going to lead us into?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, was just at CES, you know, and wow, there's robots everywhere. There's robot technologies everywhere here now. So, you know, coming here, I knew how the market's huge and it's expanding, and I give talks about that. But seeing it and touching it, it's made me take my 5-year plan to a 3-year plan. So what we were going to do in 5 years, we're now going to do in 3 years. And you know, we're going to be pursuing vertical markets. We're going to be pursuing technologies. We want to be the company that people think of in terms of getting high ROI for small, medium-sized business and making it easy to put the robot to work. So we want to be the company that gives you the best ROI and most practical applications for the robot, affordably, in an easy-to-use way. So that's what we're focused on. We don't want to solve every problem at once. We want to, you know, just give you a robot that can get you ROI, that you're happy with, that's going to do something well, and then build on that. And we have some great ideas, and you know, I just couldn't be more excited about 2026 and 2027, the future that's coming with all the things we have going on. I think we're going to surprise a lot of people with the things that we're going to be able to do.
I think a lot of people asking about what is the future technology going to look like and what are the advancements. Can you take us into the future, what our life going to look like with the technology advancement in robotic and humanoid robot?
The robot's able to do everything. But the upside of that is labor costs go down to almost zero. So the amount of bountiful things that we'll have in the world will even increase. Like, you know, we have a lot more today. If you go back 100 years, everybody today lives like a king. They have entertainment, they have great food. So I think that'll continue. And robots will enable a much higher standard of living for everybody. And then how they want to use that is up to them.
So do you think in the future the infrastructure of our society should more adapting to human or should be more adapting to the robot because they might need more charger than what we need for other things?
I don't know that it's an either or. I think there'll be infrastructure for robots. And there'll be specialized robots. I mean, G1 is designed as a general purpose robot, right? So he can do lots of different things. But robots also become specialized and may look a little different, or, you know, have 4 arms or, you know, flat arms, or depending on what they need to do. So I think we'll see, just like when electric motors came out, you know, you don't have an electric motor, you have a garage door opener, and, you know, you might have an electric car or other devices that use electric motors. So I think robotics will be like that. It'll just be built into lots of things eventually, but we'll have our independent robots too that go with us. And I believe everybody will have multiple robots, just like you have multiple phones or computers now, rather. Your phone's a computer, your desktop computer, that people will have multiple robots in different forms doing different things.
What are the change or mind shift for yourself when you're working so closely and seeing this technology advancement every day? Did you feel the same as before you jump into the, you know, technology, or after? What are the differences?
Well, I've learned a lot since I've jumped into robotics. As you mentioned, my background is marketing and entrepreneurship with technology, but I've had crash courses on robotics from a lot of folks, especially our engineers. And one thing is that, you know, people's expectations is much higher than the reality today, because we've all seen these movies of the robots doing amazing things. So the robots can do a lot less than people think today. But everybody agrees that that's going to change in the future. But I think the expectations versus the reality, you know, creates a disappointment. So when I first saw the first robot, it was a go-to. You know, I thought, wow, this is the most amazing technology. I want to do something with this. Like, this is the future. I knew from the moment I saw it that I wanted to launch a company to market robots and to develop technologies and applications. But when I saw it after, and this, everybody goes through this that I show the robot too. You look at it, you're amazed, and, you know, it does its tricks and things, and then you want to think about, okay, how would I put this to use? And then they ask me, like, okay, what can I do with it? And that's where things are being developed and still figured out largely in applications and capabilities. So the challenge is to develop technologies and products that allows people to put them to use and, and get a real benefit from them. And that's what we're doing.
And since this is such a big wave of robotic and physical AI, do you feel the urge to working harder and faster? And if so, what is your strategy towards it?
Very much, and I think as part of your last question too, I left that off, but it's moving so fast. I mean, again, I've been involved in multiple waves of technologies, within Silicon Valley, and this is more than anything, not just the potential of the market, but the amount of intensity. Again, I thought people worked hard before on the previous waves, but this is another level. So, because I think it's the passion. I know that our engineers are this way, and many people in robotics are this way. It's such a passion. I mean, people have a tremendous passion about this. So it's like nonstop work. You never stop trying to develop and think about how to use the robot and ways you can apply it and the technologies that need to be incorporated and how to overcome the obstacles. So there's so many young people really focused on this. So I think the resources, the brains involved is going to move this very fast. And I'm used to being a very, very fast mover, and I just feel lucky if I can keep up at all. So it's overwhelming, I would say.
And where is the area of robotic in general you are most excited about?
There's two camps that the robots fall in, I'll say today. One are closed systems, like Optimus or Neo or Figure, where you get a robot hardware and software package together, and it's closed. There's other platforms like the G1, which are open platforms. You can run your own software on them. So I think both of those will move forward differently, where G1 might have lots of different capabilities in different aspects, but rougher, kind of like Android. And like iPhone, others might be more polished at certain things, but more limited in their capabilities. So I see them moving forward separately and diverging that way. I also see the hardware becoming more specialized for different needs. Just them becoming more universal as well.
And what are your thoughts on those robots? They are synthetic humans, right? They have the real muscles. I think there are companies that are focused on the facial expressions.
I don't like it. Like, I would rather the robot look like a robot. But I think, some people want that. Like, I know the quadruped robots, the dog robots, the market is moving them towards look more like dogs. Softer, emotionally react, so that people can treat them more like dogs. And yes, like the next series of robots, like we have a robot coming out in April that will have a face, very much like the iRobot robot from the movies. So some of this is actually being led by the science fiction. Like the stuff that has been imagined in movies is inspiring what they're creating now because we can do it. Yeah, I'm not big on them looking too much like us. No, from my comfort level, I'd rather have it be a robot. But I think a lot of people want that as well.
What are the future you see that inspired you to think about robotic?
Maybe not in a good way, but like the WALL-E movie, where people are very dependent on robots,
yeah.
And I think what I look to do is shape them and allow people to give a way for people to leverage their technologies to improve their lives, to improve their businesses, to reach their goals. So that's where I'm focused on. I'm not really focused on making them look like us or friendliness or things like that. I'm really focused on practical business applications that the robots can be put to use. That said, we do a lot of videos and we do a lot of entertaining with the robots, and that's to build awareness and to show people what they can do.
You have mentioned you are not coming from a purely robotic background. You basically jump in and make such a fast advancement in your career. Do you have any advice for the entrepreneur out there, how they can pursue their dream even though those things seem like quite new for them?
I always do research. When I started Toborlife, I spent months learning the market and testing it and thinking about how I was going to launch before I did. I think it's good to reinvent yourself every so often. I think most entrepreneurs, look for that. and build on what you've done before. So rather than starting over, you can just build on top of what you did, but you can still reinvent yourself as part of the process. I always look for waves because I have a saying that even cows fly in tornadoes.
Yes.
And so I'm looking for something that, where there's a big wind at my back that I can capitalize on. So I think that's important. Actually, I think the best time to start a company is in a recession. Because it allows, it's like running into the wind, but then all of a sudden when the wind shifts to your back, you're going faster. So I think if you can get your business going in a recession, costs are lower, there's more people unemployed, it's easier to start, and then when the economy turns better, then it's even better for you. But those are some of the thoughts.
Then when you think about hiring people who don't come from this area, what is your secret sauce?
Well, for engineers, I think they need experience. Like, I don't want them learning on the job. I want people that know a lot. But we look for competencies like in sales or marketing or operations. It's not necessarily robot specific, other than the engineering. We do a lot of training, so we want to have all of our employees, like even our accounting manager and operation managers can answer questions and help people with the robots. So we want all of our employees to have technical knowledge and deep knowledge on the robots and the technologies that we have. The fundamental skills and experience is important, but unless they're working on the product per se, they don't need robotic experience.
And what are the one typical technology around the robotic you are raise your eyebrow that you didn't know before and you think it's worth of people to learn about?
AI, large language models, and the ability of the robot to balance and navigate its environment and understand what it's looking at. So, that's all new. And the fact that we have now the processing power and the architecture of the software to realize that's a breakthrough. That's what's made these possible, and that's fairly new. The other, I would say, is simpler than that, but it's LiDAR. So just like you see the self-driving cars like Waymos and so forth having LiDAR, LiDAR for a robot allows it to map its world and know where it is. And then there's high-speed internet, which is important for the robot to be able to connect to a cloud and process data. So some robots can operate independently to a degree, but generally they're going to need to connect to the cloud to get more information and help them. So the fact that we have all of these technologies coming to play, and like I was saying before, better cameras. And then I would also go on to the hands. The hands are almost an entirely separate thing, which is, some robots have hands, some don't. This one has 5 finger hands that are manipulatable. They have pressure sensitivity, so it can pick something up and know how much force it's applying. So there's been a lot of engineering and progress on the hands, but it's made me appreciate how amazing the human hand is. So it'll be a long time before the robot has this, the level of dexterity of the human hand has. But working with robot hands, it really makes you appreciate what an incredible invention our hands are.
How does a robot see the world? If we make an analogy of 5 sensors for human, what it would be like for the robot?
It's expandable, so you can plug in lots of different sensors. It can have more than us because it could measure radiation, or it could measure thermal heat, so anything, any sensors that exist can be attached to the robot and transported around and used for collecting data. But generally, what it has is as I mentioned, LiDAR. So LiDAR is using laser beams to reach out and hit things, and that way it knows, the physical structure that it's in. So it can map, and even in a dark room, it could see essentially with its LiDAR. It also has depth cameras, so that it can see where it's going, interpret that data, and use that to help navigate or recognize objects. So if I tell it to go get a Coke, it would know what a Coke can looks like and wait to try to go find it. We are working with incorporating a technology. It's not our technology, we're licensing it, but a chip that samples particles in the air, much as your nose does. For the dogs especially, but also for the humanoid could use that. So it could have that sense. That's what comes to mind. But it has expandability, so there's ports and power. So really anything that exists that plugs into a computer could plug into this and be interpreted, the data from it.
So when we see how rapid the technology is advanced and going forward, where you see the future of robotic look like, and what are the base layer infrastructure we would need to achieve that?
Well, a lot of it's being built right now. NVIDIA talks about building AI factories, which are, used to be called data centers maybe, but these are places where, the AI is being deployed and delivered from. And they are building them, they're each about $50 billion investments. They build a nuclear power plant next to them just to power the necessary CPUs, GPUs that are being deployed, which are in the many thousands or tens of thousands, or huge amounts of power requirements, huge build out. And it caused me to think that if we went back 75 years, the average person's phone would take multiple city blocks to create that level of power. It would basically be equivalent to what I just explained. So if we project ourselves, if it's 25 years or 50 years in the future, you will be able to have in your hand or in your robot the equivalent of one of these AI factories. It seems hard to believe now, but if you went back 75 years ago, it would seem the same way, and we're there now. So, and I think it'll be a lot less than 75 years. So when the robots can have that kind of power locally, so it's not even in the cloud, because the cloud will be so much more powerful than that, but just they have the level of power now of the $50 billion AI factory in their head, then they will be in our world and, be a lot smarter and faster than us. Then I think, it'll be what people are maybe thinking is, coming sooner. But that's the future that I see for that.
What is the best case scenario for this future of robotic in combination with human lifestyle?
Well, I think they can really elevate our lives. They will make material objects low cost or free because they're going to manufacture everything. And they can do all the main mundane jobs, so it should be a utopia, really. But there's another aspect to this. As the robots get smarter and smarter, they will, eventually maybe become self-aware. The singularity, it's called, but when they recognize their individualism, and so the robot intelligence will increase. And as I mentioned, eventually the power of a $50 billion AI factory today will be in the robot. So eventually the robots may look at us as pets. And at some point the robots will be able to build other robots. And then they'll be able to build cities. So eventually they will build other robots and they'll build millions of robots. And those millions of robots will go out onto the wilderness somewhere and they'll build a robot city. And when we build a city and we put a road between two cities, we don't ask the animals for permission, we just do it. So at some point, the robots may look at us as we look at, wildlife, basically. The robot, having AI in it and being able to interact in the physical world is key, I think, to building that data. So everybody's, knows about large language models and, asking ChatGPT questions. And that's been enabled because there's so much data online. Like it can read all the books and everything anyone's ever written. But in the physical world, there isn't a lot of data. So the robot's getting out and start, every time you teach the robot to do something or you manipulate it, you're creating training data for the physical world, and that requires a lot of data. So it's going to be a long time building the data sets for the robots to navigate the physical world. There's a lot of companies working on it, but it's an enormous amount of data that's required, and it's just starting to be collected, whereas the whole history of the world collected all the data that already exists online, but in the physical world we're creating it. So, what to do now, how to prevent this, I just think, good protections and standards. It's not something I think about a lot, but hopefully those will exist.
And where do you see robotic can help us as a human in the future 3 years to come?
I think everybody can use a coach. Like even the best athletes in the world have coaches, right? So having a coach embodied in a robot that can help you eat better, exercise properly, keep up your mental health perhaps. I see that as a great aid. So I really think the robots can support a much healthier living style and bring us information and help kind of, cajole us into doing what we want to do, but maybe not at that moment. But they will be able to provide, incentive and encouragement. Just like your business coach might do, or your fitness trainer might do, or your therapist might do. I think the robot could take on that role for people and again help build us all up.
Thank you, David.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for watching this new episode of the HumanWare Project. So that we can bring more amazing content to you, please like and subscribe. Your support means the world to us.